My name is Anthony Brewer and I'm a co-founder at Agalytics. Agalytics is a startup company and we're a hardware startup company and we're developing sensors for agriculture. Sensors that allow a farmer in their field to measure the nutrients that are in their soil in real time. The problem is a farmer in their field has no measure of what nutrients are available to feed their plants. If they want to know, they have to send the sample to a lab for testing, and it's really expensive. But more than the cost is the time. It takes around 1 to 2 weeks to get that data back. So by the time you get the data back from the lab, it's out of date. So there's no method for the farmer to rapidly get in-field analysis of what nutrients are available for their plants, and that's the problem that we address. With my background in optical physics and spectroscopy, I wanted to be able to apply that knowledge to allow a farmer to get instant information in the field and actually really help them to advance what they currently do today so that they can improve on what their practice is, they can get more yield, they can do better as farmers. Our sensor is a chemical sensor and it's a single-use chemical sensor. Single use is important from usability. We looked at using something that could be used multiple times, but then the farmer would have to clean it, and from a usability perspective, it just wasn't going to be viable. So we developed a single-use disposable cartridge. A grower in their field, they put some soil inside, they put some plant tissue inside, they put some water inside, and within 2 minutes, we extract the nutrients out of that sample and we give that number to a farmer on their smartphone. The number from the sensor is nice, but a lot of farmers don't know how to implement that. So we have to display it on the smartphone, and the smartphone is a really powerful computer that everyone has in their pockets today. So we use that smartphone and we use that computational power to give recommendations. So we can show the nutrient distribution across a whole field if you're testing multiple points. But if you're testing weekly or every 2 weeks, for example, we can show how the nutrients change throughout the season. And with that data, that's really powerful, and the farmer can take that data, they can apply more fertilizer or they can apply less fertilizer, and they can implement some positive change to truly maximize their yields and truly maximize their profitability. And this is what Agalytics does well, and this is where Agalytics really adds value, but it's rapid but low cost in-field testing. The first milestone of my startup was convincing my partner that I wouldn't get a job, and that I wouldn't have a job and I wouldn't have a salary, and she would be the sole breadwinner. So I guess my biggest milestone was actually making that jump and convincing her that would be a great idea. And I'd worked in Brisbane previously, so I was able to find these co-founders relatively quickly, people I'd worked with previously. And Campbell Smythe is probably one of Australia's leading industrial designers, so he came on board, and Greg Lauer, who's an MBA from QUT, he's previously worked in startups and is the business leader at Agalytics. In December 2015, we joined the iLab Germany program. That was about accelerating our business, accelerating Agalytics. We developed a business case, but we also developed a technology side. So we developed a proof of concept, a functional prototype that allowed us to prove the principle of our technology. With that provisional prototype, we went out and we spoke to farmers and we used it in their fields, understood their workflow, understood the problem that we solve and the value that we can add. As a hardware startup, IP is actually really important to us. And when we're talking to investors, the fact that we do have IP, we're developing provisional patents, that we have IP around our software and our mapping and our algorithms, that's actually really helpful for them. It gives some value to the company, even at a very early stage. And our investors can see that as we move forward, it will add further value. It was really interesting when we started Agalytics. We spoke to a lot of people, mentors about IP, and everyone said, don't patent your technology, just move fast. And in reality, that's actually probably a mistake. If you're doing hardware, if you do have a patent portfolio, it does add to your valuation and it gets investors excited. Traditionally, hardware startups have been very costly, and that's not the case anymore. So with 3D printing, rapid prototyping, for example, and we do a lot of work with the Australian National Fabrication Facility, who are at UQ. No one knows about them, but they've got great resources, and it's so cheap as well, $16 an hour, for example, to use their facilities. If we had to send that away to an external company, we'll be looking at a lead time of weeks, but also cost as well. So we can 3D print something in 2 to 3 hours at a cost of $50. If we send that to a private company, we're looking at $500 for the same thing. Our first kind of proof of concept, it was not functional. It was a phone case, just a silicone phone case, and it had a Tic Tac box glued to the outside. And it kind of gave the impression that, you can put some soil into the Tic Tac box and you can put it inside and the phone will do some detection. we went over to UQ and said, this is what we've got at the moment, a tic-tac box glued to a phone case. And obviously they're quite sciencey, and they're surrounded by instrumentation worth millions of dollars. So it's a bit of a stretch to go from what we had to a commercial reality product. But they're actually really welcoming, and they helped us to train us on the 3D printers, train us on the other instrumentation there, microscopes, and then really open door policy to startups and innovation. At Agalytics, we developed our proof of principle prototype, and that's validated the technology. But really, to move forward, because we are a hardware company, we're out seeking investment. So we can't grow organically. We have a lot of upfront costs on the development side and on the actual tooling, for example, of manufacturing. So we are out seeking investment. And there are AgTech investors out there who have invested in startups in the agricultural sector, but they're very few and far between. There's not many of them, and they're very fractured. A lot of high net worth farmers, for example, might live out in Dolby or Longreach, and they're not necessarily in Brisbane, and they're not aware of the startup communities. I would love for the startup scene in the big cities, in Brisbane, for example, to be much more connected to rural Australia and the problems that they face. I'm not sure how that would happen, but obviously what's going on now with Advanced Queensland is a great opportunity to engage rural Australia, let them know that there's a lot of innovation happening in startups, and it can solve a lot of their problems. Most agricultural testing today occurs in North America, Europe, and Australia, New Zealand. But the rest of the world just isn't served by traditional laboratories. But they all have smartphones. Even farmers in Africa, they have smartphones. And if we can develop small, low-cost sensors, we want to have a global reach. If we're generating data of soil fertility at a farm here in Australia, that's great. But then if we do many farms in Australia, many farms around the world, that's a huge data set. And with understanding soil fertility, we can understand food trends, for example. We can understand if there's going to be food insecurity in a country in Africa before they've even planted the crop, because the soil fertility just isn't going to be good enough to allow them to meet their demands. For more information about Agalytics, you can reach us on our websites, which is www.agalytics.com.au, or you can email me directly at abrewer@agalytics.com.au.